How's it going, everyone? It's Avi from Weatherstorm 5000. Today is September 1st, 2019, the first day of September. And wow, looking at Hurricane Dorian, it is now one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever. The only ones that come to mind is Hurricane Irma, which was in 2017, and then earlier than, but even Irma wasn't as strong or as intense as this. This is a 911 millibar pressure hurricane, and the other hurricane that comes to mind was Hurricane Wilma, which went down to 892 millibars at 205 miles per hour. But it isn't at that point yet, but it certainly could based off of the satellite imagery. We see that the storm's becoming more symmetrical. We're seeing those thunderstorm bands as it basically looks like a textbook hurricane. That's how organized it looks. And it is extremely, extremely worrying. Let me refresh this because I don't know if it is at the correct loop. Okay, now it's refreshing. But as I showed you, this hurricane is completely well organized. It can't get more organized than this is what I'm basically saying. And I'm a little afraid this could go up to 190 and maybe 200 miles per hour isn't even out of the question. That is insane. It made its first landfall in the Bahamas. I wish you the best over there in the Bahamas. And it's the strongest Atlantic hurricane to ever make landfall, period. Nothing comes close to 185 miles per hour when it comes to a landfalling hurricane. And a lot of Floridians are getting really scared about this because it looks like it's headed straight towards your direction. It's continuing to move west at around 8 miles per hour. And however, the forecast still remains that the computer models are confident this should take a northwest turn. As I'm going to show you the National Hurricane Center forecast track as of right now. The 2 o'clock advisory is about to come in, by the way, but you can see that the Hurricane Forecast Center, the National Hurricane Center, is expecting this storm to still move up north just before it hits the coast of Florida. And as you can see, based on the cone, there's still that slight possibility that could make landfall in Florida. We cannot rule that out of the question, and I don't want to say this to be dramatic, but if it does, this could be extremely catastrophic this could be a complete catastrophe for the east coast of Florida. However, there's still some merit to this. There's still some good news. We could at least hope. We could hope it goes to the further east track where it stays mainly offshore, and Florida mainly experiences just tropical storm force winds with maybe a prolonged period of beach erosion and maybe some coastal flooding as well. Can't rule out the question even if it goes to the far eastern side of the track, and it won't be anything major. However, if it were to take that middle track that the National Hurricane Center is predicting, we still could see a prolonged period of tropical storm force winds and possibly hurricane force winds along the coast of Florida, especially near the West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, Daytona Beach area. You can see that the eye is probably going to be only about 20 miles offshore of you guys, which could make you guys experience hurricane force winds, which is certainly not out of the question with this if it were to take the middle of the track. But like I said before, it could go anywhere within the cone. Don't just think it's going to the middle. Think that it could go over Florida, which we certainly hope doesn't happen. We think it could go over the eastern part, and just also keep in mind that only 2/3 of the time the hurricane stays within the cone. There's that other 1/3 where it could potentially go out of the cone. I don't know if I don't think there's a possibility it could go out of the cone this early, but who knows with these very slow moving storms with weak steering currents, anything could happen as this hurricane is still very unpredictable when it comes to impacting Florida. And based off of the recent models, yesterday the good news was that it was shifting more to the east where it was pretty much offshore, not doing anything to Florida. But we've been seeing the trend that the computer models are now favoring more of a western track these past several runs, which is a huge major worry. We'll check the GFS if it's loaded up, and going back you could see that the eye is pretty close to Florida, probably 20 to 30 miles offshore still, which is good news. But any slight error with these slow moving storms could mean a major difference in impact. So I see this in three different scenarios. Scenario one, which is worst case scenario, hurricane makes landfall, complete catastrophe for Florida, category 5, category 4, even category 3, it's going to be extremely damaging if it makes landfall. The other scenario is a natural hurricane center track, where it is likely that the extreme eastern portions of Florida may experience hurricane force wind gusts and possibly sustained if it just gets a little close enough, but it won't be anything crazy, probably minor to moderate damage, especially on the eastern portion of Florida, with rainfall around 3 to 5 inches. And then the best case scenario would be is if this stays completely offshore, where barely you'll experience tropical storm force wind conditions on the eastern portion of Florida. And it may cause coastal flooding because it's a prolonged period. It may cause a lot of beach erosion, and we could see that rain pile up also in Florida, even if it takes a current national hurricane track. But even if it takes a current national hurricane track, there's still something to prepare for Florida. But since it is so unpredictable, I recommend to all Floridians, prepare as if this storm is making landfall. You don't want to take the risk not prepare for it just because you think it's going to stay offshore, because there's still clearly a possibility that this storm will make landfall along the Florida coastline. And let me refresh to see if the 2 o'clock update came in, because that's also important. We may see a continued strengthening, but as for the Bahamas, stay safe. It's difficult to go through not only a 185 mile per hour hurricane, but a slow moving one as well. And then after Florida, Carolinas could be involved, maybe as Cat 2 or Cat 1 at this point, as the GFS model states. But most of the models are in agreement that the National Hurricane Center track is correct. But as you know, these slow moving storms are completely unpredictable. So don't take your guard down just yet, Florida, as if it makes landfall, this could be devastating. But you can see Europeans, very similar track, but like I said, slow moving storm, unpredictable. And even if it doesn't make landfall, think about Matthew. That storm didn't make landfall, but still brought $3 billion of damages in Florida. But in terms of the storm structure itself, do I expect weakening, which is hopeful? There may be some weakening because this storm is staying over the same area. It's gonna stay over the same area for a long period of time over water, which means that the hurricane will likely turn up a lot of the cooler water that's underneath the warm water, and might suck up all the warm water that's left in the ocean, which may give the idea that this hurricane might steady down. Or maybe an eyewall replacement cycle, which is definitely hopeful, because eyewall replacement cycles are unpredictable, yet they usually weaken hurricanes. But at this point, when we're talking about a 185 mile per hour storm, even if it goes down to 160, the difference there is very small despite 25 mile per hour wind difference. Like at that point, when you're at the point of category 5, category 4, the damage doesn't really get much better. But the best hope for Florida is to just hope this storm stays offshore. And currently the computer models are agreeing that this should stay offshore, but there's still a whole array of possibilities that Florida needs to keep track of, because models are trending more towards the west as well. So we'll have to see what happens in that next update. And I wouldn't be surprised in this next update if this storm increases its strength to 190 mile per hour hurricane, as it's 185 like this based off of 11 o'clock. But when hurricane hunters went in there, they determined it was actually 185. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 190, 195, or even 200 mile per hour storm in our hands. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Floridians, prepare like this is a category 5 hurricane. You don't want to take the risk of this making landfall. And Carolinas, prepare now also, because you could still be impacted by this. And I hope you guys have a good day.